What's up, everybody? It's Dr. Mobius again. We're back here with another Schedule 1 guide. In the last video, we were over at the Bungalow where we had a 4 mixing station set up with 12 pots, and we did a mix that produced a pretty good profit. This time, we're bringing that exact same mix over to the barn, but we're upgrading the pots from 12 pots to 16 pots. It'll still be 4 mixers just for the weed, but now we're adding in meth stations. So we'll have chemistry stations and ovens, and specific recipe just for the meth. It'll have its own 4 mixers and its own recipe. We can maximize the profit on the meth as well as on the weed with 4 mixing stations each. So let's get into it. Okay, so for this guide, we're gonna have 5 chemists, 3 botanists, and 2 handlers. We got a full house here. There is no room for a cleaner, which is sort of unfortunate. I prefer having cleaners when I can, but this is such a packed build, there's just no room for it. So 5 chemists, 3 botanists, and 2 handlers. We'll start right away with the shelves. This is the easiest way to get the layout arranged because shelves you can snap into place very easily. And once we get the shelves in place, we'll put down the mixing stations and the ovens and the chemistry stations. So right when you first walk in the door, there's 2 shelves. They right here by the door. Just slap the 2 of them. Then there's a beam. Then there's 3 more shelves. When those shelves are in place, just turn and face this wall. You'll see that there's a beam on this back wall. Slap 8 shelves against this back wall. So now we got this section done. We'll go over to the other side of the room. Right here in front of the door, there's a space because there's a beam. But this is where you can put your mixing station, or not mixing station, you can put your packaging station, whether that's for jars or baggies. Personally, I just have all of my meth bricked up. I also have my weed bricked up. Everything just gets bricked up in this build. But I like to have jars on hand for the weed. For the meth in my docks warehouse, I actually have a bagging station because in the docks, that's where all the cocaine is manufactured. So I have baggies at the docks and I have jars here because usually for the weed, they want to buy in quantities of 4. So I just talk them up to 5 and then just give them a jar. But you can have your baggies or jars here, whichever is easiest for you. But you can see it'll fit nicely in when you put these 2 shelves starting at the beam, just 2 shelves. They stop at that beam. They fit perfectly in between the 2 beams. And then you can put whatever packaging station you would like right here. Although we will be putting, as a part of this build, we will be putting 2 different brick stations in the build. One for the weed rotation and one for the meth rotation. So if you're fine with just having it bricked, you don't even need this. But if you're like me and you would like to at least jar up some weed, then slap a packaging station here. But either way, there's 2 shelves between these 2 beams. And then on this back wall, it's just centered-ish. It doesn't really matter. If you're trying to exactly copy it, try to line up the right side with the right side of the window. And you'll match that location. But this is the source shelf for one of the botanists. So slap that shelf there. These 3 drying racks, they just fit so that you have room to walk around them. You can't squeeze through the back here, but your employees can. But as long as you can walk around the 2 sides just fine, clear your packaging station and clear this beam, then they're perfectly fine as long as you just slap 3 of them there. You do want to put a gap in between the 2. Again, this is too small of a gap for you to fit through. But you don't want to nudge them right up against each other. You want to give them just this little bit of a gap because then your employees can walk through them. So with that in mind, just slap 3 drying racks down there. Now this is where all of the pots are going to go. We'll put those down in a second after we're done going around the room for the shelves and the beds. So we'll leave this blank for now. This ends up being the second botanist supply shelf, and it ends up just kind of being in the middle of this whole section. The other side is just mirrored of what's over there. So here, just line it up sort of to the edge of the window. It doesn't quite fit perfectly. It's just the way that the window is. But again, 3 drying racks. Make sure you have enough room to walk between the beams in the drying racks and give them that little half space between each of them. And then this is the third resource shelf for your third botanist. So this completes the weed portion of the room. Both these shelves over here, these supply shelves, these are the final output shelves. And then this whole section here is the whole weed section. So when that's all done, you will have pretty much this exact same setup. These 2 shelves here are extra. These are my dumping shelves. When I run in and I need to dump all of my stuff, I just dump things in here, and that way I have a full inventory or a empty inventory that I can fill up when I'm restocking shelves. So I will include these in the total shelves for the build in the description, but they are optional. So if you do not want extra shelves, you can take away these shelves. Now, as far as these 2 beds, once you have these shelves up in place, just put the head of a bed right up against it, and as far up against the wall as you can make it. There is a pillar in the way. And then put this bed foot to foot with it. And you will need these beds eventually anyway, so just put these 2 beds foot to foot. As far as these shelves, there's 2 shelves between this beam and this beam. You can see that's in this last section of the wall. Just slap 2 shelves there. And then center this shelf between these 2 beams. And same with this one. Center this one between those 2 beams. These are meth supply shelves. And then up against this beam, there's this 1 shelf sticking out. This will eventually be flanked on both sides by mixing stations, but for now, just slap the shelf there. And then last, we have our ingredient shelves for the meth. So same as the other corner of the room, start at the beam and slap 8 shelves right across the back of that wall. And those are all of the resource shelves that you need. And now we'll look over the beds really quick. This is how you can fit a whole bunch of beds up here. So the first 4, you put the heads of them towards either side of the wall. The next 3 go, well, it depends on which way you're looking, but they go the opposite direction. And then the last 2 are back to heads against the walls again. So that gives you the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the beds. The 10th bed is the one down here, and then 1 for yourself. So that's all the shelves and beds. Now we'll go into the mixing stations. Stop! If you're enjoying this, give it a like, please. Back to the video. For simplicity, instead of doing the mixing stations right away, it'll actually make a little bit more sense if we go into the chemistry stations and the ovens first. So let's go take care of those first. Those are going to be easier to place down. So take a chemistry station and make sure it's pointing away from the wall. And put the first one, you'll see that there's a beam here. You don't want to, it won't place it anyway, but you want to place it right after the beam, just like this. And you'll place the second one right up next to it, and the third one right up next to it. So there's the first 3 chemistry stations. And then switch over to the lab ovens. Switch it to where the arrow is pointing towards the chemistry station we just put down. And we're just going to tuck this guy in between these 2 shelves, just like that. Then a second one beside it, and a third one. Come around the back, flip it around so it's pointing you again, and tuck it back into this corner. 1, 2, 3. So there's now 6 lab ovens, and we'll put down the last 3 chemistry stations. Make sure it's pointing out towards you, and stick it right in between the shelf and the end of this bed. 1, 2, 3. There's the chemistry stations and the lab ovens. And now we can switch to the mixing stations. So the first mixing station, it's going to go right up against the back of this chemistry station and tucked up against the side of this bed, just like this. There's the first one. Now, similar to what we did on the bungalow, just stand with your back towards the mixing station, Place the next one so that you can access both of them, and then flip around to the back and put them back to back. And then one more time, stand in between them and place it just like that. And there's your 4 mixing stations for the weed mixers. And now we'll go do the mixing stations for the pot, or for the meth. So the meth mixing stations go over here. This first one, the easiest way to do it is when you're placing it down and you're looking at it just like this, you can see how on the right side you've got, when you're placing it down this beam here, you can have the left side of the mixing station aligned to the beam, or you can have the right side of the mixing station aligned to the beam. We want the right side to align to the beam. So the beam is kind of aligned to that right half of the station. So drop it there and then place the next one right up against it. And come around to the back. Make sure it's facing you. And drop the third and then the fourth one. That gives enough room to walk in between the mixing stations. And it gives us enough room to get to the stairs. So now we have 4 mixing stations. The chemistry stations and the ovens. Those are all placed. Now we'll get to the pots. So we have 18 pots, 18 suspension racks, and 18 full spectrum lights. So we'll start with the first row of pots. Right back against this wall next to this pillar, place your first pot, and you're going to do a row directly out. Six pots deep. When you get to your 6th pot, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your next pot does not go directly beside it, but you move it over 1 space. And then similar again, we don't go directly beside it, we move it over 1 space. So that'll give you this basic layout, and now you can just follow these rows all the way back with your pots. Just like that. Now I'll put up the suspension racks. And then the full spectrum lights. These are sometimes a little tricky to get right in the right spot. If you crouch and go underneath them, it'll work now. Once we get the plants in, this will no longer work, but this works for now. Thought I heard it drop an extra light somewhere. We'll see. No, I still have 6 left. We're good. There we go. Give it a quick check, make sure they're all lined up. And they are. Right, those are all the pots and the lights, all the mixing machines, all the chemistry stations. So this room is pretty much set up, but now we just have to dial in all the different stations, and we'll start with the pots. So first we're going to assign these pots to the mixing racks that they belong to. We're going to try to split them apart pretty much right down the middle, but since they're kind of, well, you'll see. Just do as I do. We're going to take one from the middle. I'm just going to hold down, let me get to the clipboard. I'm going to hold down shift and select that middle one, this one towards me, and this one towards me. And those we're going to hit E to manage and set their destination there. And as long as we have them selected, we'll say they are OG Kush. We're going to be using fertilizer and PGR. So these first three, that drying rack. Now let's go around the back side. And I'm keeping them selected just so that you can see the one against the wall we've selected, but the one next to it we haven't. So when I scroll out and back in, I'm going to select this one that I haven't done, and then the two right next to me. That one, this one, this one. OG Kush, fertilizer, PGR, destination, the rack behind us. So that's, we're going to follow that exact same process for each of these rows, these rows of 6 that are two rows deep each. So these ones are done. We'll go on to this one next. So same as before, this one, and this one. Oops, OG Kush, fertilizer, PGR, destination, second drying rack. Now you can see that one's already done, so we're going to start with this one next. You, and you. OG Kush, fertilizer, PGR, rack behind us. That one, this one, this one. OG Kush, fertilizer, PGR, destination is behind us. And the last 3, you, and you. Seed, OG Kush, additive fertilizer and PGR and destination behind us. All right, now that takes care of the pot destinations and their assignments. So now we just have to do the racks themselves. So make sure you scrolled out and back in so that we're selecting fresh. We just want all of 6 of these racks. With all of them selected, hit manage. We're going for heavenly quality. And the destination of all these is going to go to our first mixing machine for the weed on this side, which is right here. So they all go to that mixing station. Should look like that. We'll scroll out and back in, select the mixing station, threshold 10, destination, next mixing station. Back out, back in, threshold 10, next mixing station, back out, back in, threshold 10, next mixing station, back out, back in, threshold 10. And we don't have the destination for it yet because that will be the brick press, so we'll just leave it none for now. But that takes care of the weed cycle from plants to racks, and from racks to the mixing stations, all the way down the mixing stations. We might as well drop the... Where did I stick them? We might as well drop the brick presses now. And again, if you're going to be doing jars or baggies, then instead of dropping these guys down, you could drop a packaging station here, and you can have another packaging station here by the door if you would like. But I've got these unlocked and they are much more efficient and don't need supplies. So I'm dropping both of them here. The one on the right side, since the right side of this barn is the weed, this is going to be the weed brick press. And this one on the left side, all the left side stuff is the meth. So that'll be the meth brick press. So the final destination of this mixing machine is going to be to this brick press. Just like that. And then from this brick press, its destination is this first shelf. This is the destination for the weed bricks to go to. Now, if you're doing this from a packaging station instead, you'll take the final destination from this mixing station and you'll move it over to wherever your packaging station is. And then you'll eventually, when we get to the handlers, you'll set a route to fill that station up with jars or bags or whichever you're using. And then you'll set the destination for this packaging station over to this destination shelf. And that way your handler will package your items and still fill up this destination shelf. And you'll have one for the weed and one for the meth. So that takes care of that part. Let's see. Let's go take care of the chemistry stations and the ovens. So each chemistry station, we can select all of these. We have to do them individually. Well, first we can select all of them and tell them what the recipe is. So we'll select all 6, those 3 on that side, these 3 on this side, hit manage. Liquid meth is the only recipe we have right now. So we'll do liquid meth. And then scroll out so that they're not all selected, because each chemistry station will have its own destination of the oven directly across from it. Each time, make sure you scroll out and back into your clipboard to make sure you've only selected one individual lab oven each time. All right, now all of those chemistry stations have their counterparts of the lab ovens directly across from them. So now we can do all of the lab ovens. So we'll select the first lab oven, hold shift until we select all 6 of them. And then hit edit. The destination of all of those is going to be our first mixing station. And you can choose which one is 1, which one makes sense to you to be 1. For me, I think I'm choosing this guy to be number 1. It's kind of facing them and it makes sense to be on this side. So this will be a number 1 station. So now we'll go through these mixing stations. Similar to before, we got to scroll out, scroll back in. We'll choose one of them, destination 10, onto the next machine. Back out, back in, destination 10, onto the next machine. Back out, back in, destination or threshold 10, destination, the last machine, back out, back in, threshold 10, destination, brick press, destination, the other shelf. Those are the 2 routes now. We've got the weed route and the meth route both assigned. So now it's time to go through the employees. We'll start with some of the chemistry workers. Okay, we're going to grab the first chemist. Now this chemist is going to have an easy job because all they're doing is these mixing stations. Holding shift down, selecting all 4, hitting enter. That guy's done. Now we'll do the second chemist. He's pretty much going to have the exact same kind of job. Super easy, just mixing stations. Now, I mentioned previously that some of this build was based off of the coconut stick and his community's build for this location. And in his build, he kind of varied up how many of the chemists were working on the mixing stations. He had one chemist do 2 of these, 1 oven and a mixing station. The next one did 2 of these, 1 oven and a mixing station. So it ended up being each chemist had 1 mixing station. But I tried that in practice, not in theory, and I found that the hugest bottleneck was just at the mixing station. And it shouldn't really have a bottleneck at the mixing station because it takes 30 seconds for each of the mixing stations, whereas the ovens can take 9 hours. So that's 9 minutes for 1 oven cycle, or not oven, the chemistry station takes 9 hours. And the oven takes 4 or 5 hours, which is 4 or 5 minutes. So there shouldn't be a big bottleneck at the actual mixing stations. The bottleneck should be at the chemistry stations. And I think the reason that was because those chemistry workers were being so backed up by working at the tables that they just wouldn't get over to the mixing stations. So instead, I think it provides a little bit better workflow to just have a individual chemist working all 4 mixing stations. That way that's their sole job, and they will just pound those suckers out. So that's how we're doing it. But for this next one, we are going to assign them 2 and 1. So we'll give him 2 and 2. I mean 2 chemistry stations and 2 ovens. That's his. And we'll do the next one the same way, 2 and 2. What's your name? Brian. Brian the meth chemist. Okay, so we had those two. So we need this one, this one, this one, and this one. Is Brian's. And then we have David. Dave will be these last 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, those are all the chemists assigned. Now we'll just do the botanists. Start with Cynthia. I still have 2 drying racks assigned for Cynthia. Okay, I've unassigned all of the botanists, so we will just start over here with, who's this guy? David. We'll start with David. He's going to be the first botanist, so this will be his supply shelf. We'll do his drying racks. It's going to be these first 2 outside drying racks, and we do those first. And then we'll come in and do the first 2 rows of pots. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and then hit enter. And that's how it should look. Drying rack, and then air pots. Now I'll go grab the second botanist. This botanist is going to have the middle 2 drying racks. And then the middle sections of 6 pots. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hit enter. Drying racks, pots. And then the middle supply is the one that's out here in no man's land, just floating out in the middle. And let's see, I just did that one. So I guess it's Cynthia. So Cynthia supplies will now be the last one. She'll have the last 2 drying racks and the last 6 pots. And there's Cynthia's pots. All right, and now for the handlers. Now, when I look at these 2 handlers, I've got Helen Harris, who looks clean cut and younger. And we have Anthony Rodriguez, who looks like he's seen some shit. So in my mind, and he looks like he's baked out of his mind. So in my mind, Anthony here is a Grateful Dead dude, and he's done a lot of acid, he's done a lot of harsh chemicals, so this guy feels like he'd be right at home in the meth lab, whereas Helen here seems more like a young buck that probably is going to college and is probably just fine with a lot of pot, but we shouldn't get her hands too dirty. So we're gonna have Helen stock all of our weed shelves for us. So this is exactly like we did in the bungalow because it's the same ingredients. So first we have the Adderall, and that'll go to the first station. And then we have the Cuke, And you'll notice I'm doing every other shelf. So this is shelf 1, and then this is the backup for shelf 1. This is what I alluded to back in the bungalow video, and also in this video. There's 2 storage shelves for each ingredient. So the main one that the handlers will be working on are on the odds 1, 3, 5, and 7. And then the ones behind those, it's just a double up of that same ingredient. So when you stock these, you have extra of each of those ingredients. And it makes it so that if you're having a slow day as far as customers calling you and you feel like you don't need to run around, you don't have to call any of the people to get extra pseudo or seeds for anything, then you can just sit out here at the barn or go down to the docks once you unlock the docks. And once these start getting low, you can just grab them from the secondary shelf and move them over, and it'll extend the amount that they can produce in that day. It'll double it essentially, because they'll almost drain both shelves if you're sitting there maintaining them. So for the handlers though, we only have them doing on the odds, because this is 1, this is 1's backup. So this is 2, this is 2's backup. So this is the second shelf, which will go to the second mixer. Third shelf. Third shelf's mixer. Skip one, there we go. Fourth. And this is the last mixer. And then Helen here will also be working the brick press for the weed. So that's Helen's job. Okay, so the next will be Anthony. And Anthony will be doing all of the meth ingredients. So we'll start with ingredient 1, and that'll go to mixing station 1. Ingredient 2, mixing station 2. Ingredient 3, mixing station 3. Ingredient 4, mixing station 4. So there's Anthony's job, and I know from experience that the meth usually goes quite a bit faster than the weed. So I'm also going to give Helen here the job of keeping my jars full on my jarring machine. So here's where I have my jar supply, and I'll have her load up my mixing station with those jars. And that is all of the handlers. So let's just do another double check, make sure everyone's got the stuff that they need. We got the Chemist done, we got the Botanist done. Okay, well that's the completed build. Everything is in place now. All of the routes are selected. The employees have their tasks and their jobs. So all that's left now is for us to actually stock the entire place and watch it go into action. I'm not gonna do as long of a montage as I did at the bungalow. I just thought it was fitting for the first one. If you've never done big routes in a schedule 1 and you're excited to do them and you want to see how all of the different roles interact with each other and do their jobs, that's why I left that whole montage in there. If you didn't see it, you can go back and watch it. You can see in the chapters that I marked it out for a montage, and it has one of my songs playing in the background to try to make it not totally incredibly boring. But for this one, we're just going to stock it up. So I'll show you the stocking procedure and then just let them go at it. So let's get right into that. One thing I did want to show, I've printed out a spreadsheet, just a very simple little spreadsheet where it has all of the ingredients that I need in the barn for both of these systems. So at the top, Viagra, horse semen, megabean, and cuke. That is for the meth. And then we have the Adderall, cuke, horse semen, and megabean, which is the same recipe we had before back at the bungalow. It's the same recipe as the bungalow for the weed. And then we also, for the weed, we need soil, fertilizer, PGR, and the seeds. Since I use jars at this location, I have some for jars. And then lastly, for the meth, we need acid, phosphorus, and of course, Sudafed. So I just made this real simple spreadsheet and printed it out. It just gives me a place to write down when I'm stocking how much I need of everything. So I'm going to be using this while I go through and look at all the shelves to see how much I need. I'm going to start by stocking up the chemistry stations with all the components they need. So each station needs acid, red phosphorus, and Sudafed. In the Cocoa Nuts video, he used these in-between shelves as like the storing racks, and that's why they're here in my build. They were just kind of carry over for me watching his video. But I had found that putting the shelves in between the stations like there ends up being much more helpful in the long run. So that's where I ended up tossing them. But because of that, thankfully, I have a excess of these ingredients. So I'm actually going to take from these shelves and just start filling up all the chemistry stations. 1, 1, and 1. Now, the one slight downside to this whole build is it's not 100% automated, in that there is not a handler restocking the chemistry stations for you. So the chemistry stations they take the longest to produce. It's a 9-hour for a single batch. And so they go through ingredients the slowest. So once every 2 or 3 days, you just come in here, grab some of the acid and the phosphorus, and top off your chemistry stations. Now, if you don't like that, if you would rather have it be 100% fully automated, what you can do is, instead of having 3 botanists, you can trim down to just 2 botanists. So you'd have 2 botanists and 12 pots, the same thing that we had back at the bungalow. And then that frees you up a 3rd slot where you can have a 3rd handler. And then that 3rd handler, you can assign the acid to stations 1, 2, 3, or you could assign them directly from these hybrid access stations to tell them, once you've stocked them initially with 1 of each of these ingredients, then you can tell them to just pull off of a hybrid shelf. As long as the ingredients are already pre-stocked the first time you do it, so it has 1 Sudafed, 1 red phosphorus, and 1 acid, then they can just pull off a hybrid shelf, and when one of those ingredients goes away, they'll fill it with the correct ingredient if it's been pre-filled. If it wasn't pre-filled, they might just do 3 of the same thing. They're not very smart, and these ingredient slots are not specific to only these 3 ingredients. Right now in the game, we only have liquid meth, and these are the 3 ingredients we need for liquid meth. But I'm assuming later on, when we do heroin or some other drug, it's going to be a different 3 ingredient mix. And so the slots could be used for more than just Sudafed, red phosphorus, and acid. So if you want the handlers to properly stock them, you want to, before you set your handlers onto them, you want to set it up correctly with the correct 3 ingredients, and then you can just have them go off of a hybrid shelf like this, where you would have the 40 phosphorus, or the 40 Sudafed, 20 phosphorus, and 20 acid. You could just have them pull from that instead. So if you wanted a fully automated process, get rid of one of the botanists, get another handler, set up your stations the first time, and then set one handler to go from this station to the first 5. And then on one of your other handlers, they both had 2 extra slots. So one of those slots would be for refilling the last chemistry station. And then you've still got 1 extra slot that you can use for your packaging station, like I did with my jars. So that's if you want it completely 100% fully automated. But if you don't mind coming in here every 3 or 4 days and topping it off, then stick with this. Now, the other thing I'll say is, at least the way that I've ended up playing, I've been so focused on pumping out bricks to make sure that all of my dealers just have an absolute metric fuck ton of supply. What I end up doing is I go through an entire day just dealing out on the streets, but then when it becomes 4 a.m. curfew and everything stops, I go to each one of my facilities and I bring out my spreadsheet and I go through and figure out all the different stocks. So every day I'm going through and restocking things. And if you play like that, then there's no reason why you shouldn't just do this yourself and just top these off, because these will last 3 or 4 days without being topped off. But if you're like me and you're actually topping off your different facilities at the end of every cycle just to keep them maximum capacity output, then it's a couple extra clicks to keep these topped off. Now that I've got all these stations topped off, I can look at what I need left. So here I need 5 Sudafed. I'm just going to bring these over to my shelf. It's a lot easier for me to look at them on these big shelves, and that's why I do it this way. Okay, so the reason that I use these shelves instead of the hybrid shelves is since we're topping it off manually anyway, it's easier just to look at the shelf and see, okay, I need 5 Sudafed. Look at this shelf. I need 10, 20 red phosphorus and 10, 20 acid. So I'm just going to write those down on my spreadsheet. A full shelf is 160, so we need 160 of Viagra. We need 160 plus another 20 is 180 for the horse semen. Magabine was the same at 180. Cuke is 160, 180, 200, 210. All right, let's go check on the Adderall. I always got to look for 10s that are hiding in there. So that's just 160 Adderall. 180 Coke, 160 horse semen, 160, 180, 200 beans. And now for the actual Botanist supply shelves. This is almost identical to the same setup that I had at the Bungalow. So each of the shelves for the Botanists, I just have it 2 stacks of soil, 2 stacks of fertilizer, 2 stacks of PGR, and 2 stacks of seeds. I'll just keep the full ones on top so I can glance at it and say we need 1 fertilizer, 1 PGR, but I have extras. So this is the backfill shelf. So I'll just grab a stack of fertilizer and a stack of PGR, and we'll just fill up these shelves so that they're full, because these are the actual source shelves for the NPCs. So you want these ones to be topped off. And we need the soil as well. There, okay, so now all of those source shelves are full. We just look at our backup shelves, put everything back, and now we can easily look at our backup shelf and say we need 2 soil, we need 7 fertilizer, and it's probably going to be 7 PGR. Usually they're dead even. And then as far as seeds, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, I got full seeds, and all these ones are full. Yep. So we're good on seeds. I've already stocked those up. And then jars. Since this is a facility with weed, I just jar them up. I think I've already explained that before, but... And then my Coke facility I have. So it's only down 4. That's fine. We can skip that. In my Coke facility, I have a baggy packaging machine. But in here, I just do the jars. All right. So to do the stocking here... I definitely recommend that you get the Viper. This is the easiest way to do it. Also, make sure you have completely empty inventory, because you can also hold 160 yourself. So that means 2 rows of 160 in the Viper plus another row of 160 for you. So this will maximize the efficiency of your stocking. We're just going to drive on down here. This is the same gas station that you'll use for both the barn and the docks. So once you learn this location and you get the docks for the cocaine factory, you'll be driving to this exact same gas station. And it's very handy because it has that parking spot where once you park your van there, everything that you buy here, you see this checkbox, load into vehicle. So it'll automatically load straight into your van. So we need a full shelf of Viagra. We need 180 of horse semen. So that puts 20 into me. And then it would be 180 Megabene, but let's see. 20 of mine is already full, so we can do 140 Megabene. And it puts the excess out here on these pallets. So you can just pick these up. Alrighty, the stocking is done with the exception of some of the illicit items. Now you could run over to the warehouse and grab these yourself, but this is a really fast delivery time. So usually, especially here in the barn where we have a meth facility anyway, I found it's better to get any of your jars that you need or baggies, as long as the soil from here and your phosphorus and acid. It's a smaller van than the normal delivery van, so we can't hold as many, but usually you're not ordering as many of these items, so it works out in the long run. And I think I needed like a few jars, so I'm just not even gonna bother with it. Also, loading dock 2, because if you order anything from loading dock 1, for whatever reason, all the employees like hanging out in loading dock 1. And the van doesn't just drive up and give them a chance to disperse. It just apparates right there. And their bodies will go flying. They'll be broken and twisted and beaten up and will be cursing your name and saying, "Why did you do this to me?" And yeah, so just use loading bay 2 instead. Save yourself some pissed off employees. It wouldn't be a problem. It would have been just funny, except I've had the next day some handlers not doing anything because their leg was just broken, and I guess sometimes they need time to recuperate or something. I'm not entirely sure, but now I've just avoided it and I've only used the loading bay 2. And then I'll skip on the fertilizer and PGR for now. So that does fully stock us as soon as that van gets here. A minute, 14 seconds. Okay, I think it's here. Nope, not that. All right, we're fully stocked. Let's see everything in action. Let's hit the hay and watch them work. Oh yeah, we need to pay them. Let's pay them really quick. There we go. Now we can watch them work. I'm going to hide the camera and do a time lapse instead of making you sit here for a long time. Well, I think that is it for the first day. They have all stopped working and moved themselves off to their sleeping positions of standing outside and loading bay 1. Let's see what we've got. Nothing in brick press, nothing in brick press. So they're almost there. We'll do one more day of a, yeah, and they haven't really hit much of the stock here. You see they're down 3 slots here, 4 slots there. That's for the weed. What about the meth? 3 slots. Nothing. Well, yeah, that's the backup. 2 slots. 1 slot. 1 slot. So, since we're just hanging out, I'm going to restock from the backfill slots. All right, well, that wraps this one up. Thanks again for watching. I hope this was as easy to follow for you guys as it was for me to recreate it. I've already done this a few times, so it was pretty much a snap to blaze through it. But hopefully it was easy for you to understand and that you got a lot out of it. If you do have any questions or comments, just drop them down below. I'll be reading everything that you guys write, and I'll try to reply to as much as I can. Thank you so much for stopping by. If it wouldn't trouble you so much, it is free after all. Could you give me a like the video, please? It'll really help other people find this video. I really appreciate it. As a smaller channel, all these little bits really help. But thank you once again, and I'll see you in the next video where we go to the docks and deal with a cocaine automation factory. I'll see you there.